Hey, we are here at the 2017 Tennis Congress at the Hilton El Conquistador, and we are going to talk about rules today. My name is Brett Haberstick, and to my left is Howard McGee. Both of us are officials out of the Intermountain section of USTA, and we collected a number of awesome questions prior to the Tennis Congress that we are going to run through for folks. And I just want you to know that if you have questions after this, you can always get in touch with one of us or the Tennis Congress itself, and they'll get us the questions. So the first question is really from one of the attendees here is, who can call a foot fault? You know, foot faults are kind of rampant in league play, they're rampant in tournaments, but if you don't have an official there, can you actually call a foot fault?
You can. There's a lot of confusion about that, about who can really do that in a league match, whether or not you can call a foot fault on your opponent. The rules are pretty clear. If it's an officiated match, there are officials available, then you get the official, they take care of it. If not, the rules are very clear that it says if you and your partner can see a blatant foot fault from across the court, after warning your opponent, hey, you're foot faulting. If you continue, I'm going to start calling foot faults on you. You can go ahead and call a foot fault yourself.
Right. And that's kind of a nice way of handling it, especially if you're polite about it and you're just honestly saying, you're foot faulting. It's often the best way of handling that. Another question we got was this. So a doubles match was going on, and they had some trees next to the court. The ball apparently came close to touching one of the branches, and it was unclear whether that actually happened. One doubles team said it did, the other did not. And so, how do you handle that kind of situation, especially when it gets heated?
Well, the tree becomes a permanent fixture, just like one of the light posts, the fence on the side of the court. If a ball hits it, it is now out of play. So whoever hit the ball, they just lost that point.
Right. What about an indoor court, a high lob? What if it touches the ceiling?
Same thing. Ceiling's a permanent fixture.
Whose call is that in that situation?
Anybody on the court can actually call it.
Right. And that's important too, because typically some receivers will say, no, it's only our call, and because you were the one hitting the ball. But really, it's really anybody's call that can do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we got about who can call lets. So how does that work?
That's a great question. Anybody on the court can call a let. Lets are really kind of two different topics. You can have a service let, which, again, anybody can call. However, if a ball rolls on court, how would you handle that?
If it's interrupting play, I'm going to call a let. We'll replay the point.
Okay. And what happens if the player decides to stay, everybody accepts the ball that's rolled on court and they continue the point?
Then it's no longer a ball, it's just a bump on the court. You continue.
And if the ball, the slim chance that a shot is actually going to hit that ball, what if it actually hits the ball? What do you do then?
If it's clear which ball was the one in play, then you play that ball. If you can't tell which ball it was, you replay the point.
Right. Yep. So another question that we got
before we get off lets.
Okay.
So you can't always call a let. If you are responsible for a ball that comes out of your pocket, a handkerchief that comes out of your pocket, your opponent is the only one who can call that. You cannot call a let for something that you are responsible for.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
So that the first time that happens, ball comes out of the pocket, you call a let, you replay the point. If it happens again, that is no longer a unintentional act. That's considered an intentional hindrance.
Right.
And you lose the point if you have to stop play because, again, you're losing stuff out of your pockets.
I have to say one experience that I've had is that I've had to play an opponent who holds the balls in his hand instead of in his pocket. Mm-hmm. And so he'll serve the first serve. It's a good first serve, but then he'll throw the second ball away. Is that an intentional hindrance or unintentional?
The first time, you warn the opponent, sorry, that's really thrown me off. You can't do that. If it happens again, that's a hindrance, and they lose that.
And I can claim the point. I can claim
Correct.
the point, right? Oh, that's good. That's good. So let's talk about who can call, or when can I talk to my opponent or talk to my partner when I'm playing a doubles match?
So in a doubles match, you can talk to your partner when the ball is headed towards you on the court. If the ball is headed towards your opponent, you can't say anything. That again would be considered a hindrance. So if you and I are playing against each other and I hit a bad lob and I know my partner is about to get a pen tattoo, then and yell, look out, you don't have to hit that ball. You can just catch the ball, let it drop, and say, hindrance, my point.
Right.
If you do attempt to hit the ball, but you're laughing because now you've got this easy shot and this guy is running away from you, and you duff it into the net, it's too late. You can't call a hindrance. Now you've lost that point.
Because I chose to hit the ball.
Correct.
Right. So I can't, so if I hit a ball short, I can't go, get out of the way! I can't do any of that, right?
Not if the ball's headed towards your opponent.
Okay. But if they've hit the ball and it comes onto our court, I can talk to my opponent. I can talk to my doubles partner.
If they choose to play the point, even though you yell that out, then play continues.
Right.
So if they hit a ball that, doesn't kill you, and I can hit back into play just goes on.
Right. Let's go back to Let's. What about a hat falling off?
Just the same as a ball coming out of the pocket.
Right, no big
That's
deal,
something
really.
you're responsible for.
Right.
You can't call it on yourself. Your opponent can call it.
There was a question that we got, and I thought it was a really, really good question because it talks about timing of matches. In USTA, rules it's about continuous play. And so there are specific time periods between different sections of a match or in a game. So between points, how much time is there?
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
After you've been able to clear the court of any loose balls or anything that's in the way.
Right. And then on a change of ends, how much time is there?
90 seconds.
90 seconds. And then between set breaks?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So 20 seconds between points.
Right.
90 seconds on change of ends.
Right.
And 2 minutes between set breaks, unless it's a best of 3 match where there could be tournament rules that say, we're going to give you a 10-minute break, right?
Before the third set.
Before the third set, of course. Right.
So one thing to watch when you're playing doubles, you cannot stop and have a minute-long conversation between every point.
Right.
That's going to delay the game. And if you're in some place like Connecticut that plays timed matches, you're never going to get through your set.
You're never going to get through it. And, in Seattle, they have an hour and 15-minute indoor court time. So there's another situation where you don't want a lot of dialogue. You got to keep the dialogue brief in that.
Right.
A nuance to that question was posed by another person, and what they asked is, instead of you taking on a change of ends, instead of taking 90 seconds, can I practice my serves?
There's nothing in the rules that say you can't.
Right.
So, sure, as long as you're not using the match balls, because you can't put undue wear on the match balls themselves.
Right. Any kind of wear and tear on the match balls has to be the result from the match itself.
So if in 90 seconds you can run to your bag, you can grab some extra balls, make sure you clear the match balls out of the way so they don't get confused, and hit serves, then go back and change sides, you can do that. You don't have enough time.
You don't get much of a rest, for sure.
Right.
So you don't actually have to take a rest period in that time where there's a change of ends or anything?
No, it's any of those. It's up to 20 seconds. It's up to 90 seconds.
Right.
If you're ready to play, your opponent's ready to play, play on.
So another question that we got, and as officials, I think we see this all the time, is there a break after the first game in a set?
No, play is continuous. After the first game, you just change sides. You do not sit down. If it's a hot day, grab some water, whatever you need to do, but get back and get ready to receive.
That play is continuous. It's meant to be continuous.
Right.
Right.
Same when changing ends during a tiebreak.
Okay. So we were talking about this earlier, and I know this is a common question for people. Let's say that we're serving, and there's I don't call out the score, but after the point, we have a disagreement about what the actual score is. It could be 30 all or 40-15 in my favor. If I don't call the score, what kind of how do we handle that?
So what happens is it's really in the rules where the server is responsible for calling out the score before every point.
Right.
If that doesn't happen, or if I've got the ball toss and starting the motion as I call out 40-30 and you think it's 30-40, then as soon as that point finishes, then we need to get together at the net and say, here's what I think the score is. What do you think it is? And what you do is you go by, every point. What happened on the first point? What happened on the second point?
Right.
What happened on the third point? And you figure out which point that you can't agree on. And it's just that one point that you replay so that you can agree on the score.
What if you can't get to that point? What else can you do?
Then you have to back down to where you can agree on the score and play from there.
Okay. And as an official, let's say it's an officiated match, what would an official do in that situation?
I'd walk on court. I'd walk you through the process.
Okay.
And
I've seen where you have to maybe flip a coin at times. Is that
if you're having a problem with the game score, you're in a timed match, you've got to get things through, then it does give you an option of flipping the coin.
Okay. Yep. All right.
It's almost never used. It's not the best way to solve that.
Tennis, 95% of all matches are unofficiated in tennis. And tennis is one of those sports where integrity, honesty, sportsmanship are really, really valued because it's one of the few sports, if not the only sport, that actually has opponents calling lines. Mm-hmm. And the integrity of the game is really written into the rules. In an officiated match, what can I expect an official to do?
So the role of officials is to make sure that fair play occurs on the court.
Right.
So if we're called to court or we're assigned to your court, we're just going to be watching play. And as long as everything is going smoothly, you won't hear a word out of us. We'll just nod our head.
That is often the best match.
Yeah. If someone asks, we may confirm a call. If we see something outside of the rules, ball lands here and you call it out, then I'm going to say, correction, the ball is good.
Right.
Points over here.
Right.
So we will overturn bad calls that we see. Otherwise, we're just going to watch and enjoy the tennis.
Something that also helps a lot of players when an official's on court is double bounces, whether they happened or not. And
right.
in tennis, in the rules of tennis, it is up to the person who is trying to play that ball. That's their call, whether they got it on the second bounce, before the second bounce or not the receivers. And that's something officials could also help with. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. So let's take a step backwards from that. I've heard code violations being given to players. Is it true that spectators can be given code violations?
Yes. If a spectator is being unruly, they are causing problems. They're yelling as, their buddy's shot, is about to get slammed. If they yell out, miss it, then you can give a code violation. It goes to the team who those people are supporting.
Right, so that would
be for spectator interference.
Right, spectator interference is a code violation that results in a point penalty for the person they're cheering for.
Correct.
Right, and that could happen in a juniors match when parents do that. It could happen when spectators are doing it for a league match. Teams, it can get very. It's one of the best parts about league tennis is that it's the social environment that really kind of gets everybody going and really cheers everybody on.
Correct.
That's good. So here's another question, and I'm kind of dominating here with the questions because I'm sure that you have some as well. If I am being bothered by some grunting, either on my court or the next court, what can I do about it?
If it's an unofficiated match, you got to let the person know you're just making way too much noise. Can you, turn it down? If it's unofficiated and they continue, there's unfortunately not much recourse you have there.
Right. Yeah. And if it's officiated, what happens then?
Then the player would be warned and told they need to tone down. They're, bothering people 2 courts away because they're screaming so loudly, and they will get penalized if it continues.
Right.
It'd be considered a hindrance at that point.
Okay. So, grunting's pretty common these days, unfortunately. I can tune it out most of the time, but there are times where it's just like you're really, really involved in the match, and all of a sudden you hear this, and it just kind of gets at you. And so it's good to be able to handle that for sure.
Yep. Get some earplugs.
Yeah, that too. So I think that's about all the questions that we've got from everybody at the Tennis Congress. Please, if you have other rule questions or please reach out to us through the Tennis Congress. And we really hope that you've enjoyed today's talk.
And if you have any questions about the rules, you can go to the USTA site and download the Friended Court. It's updated every year. There is a section in there in yellow called the Code, and that will cover 95% of what we just talked about. It's very easy. You can read through it in just a few minutes, and it'll help you in your matches.
Definitely. It'll help, fairness, competition, really having a good quality match.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.